said or what Papa Oparikwache said, but just that in my peeking into the 3rd century of the church, what are some of the things that come to me? In segments, children find themselves in a situation where they have to live through these segments for a somewhat complete life daily. These are the home, school, community, that is physical and virtual, and the church. That influence with very great effect. Again, these segments, though, can be identified very separately by such characteristics as 1, who and what controls each. 2, the values and goals that are. The segments influences 1, all of a kind that will not be able to stand and be appropriately useful for its determined function. It is by this, the very I call them the quadruple of stability in ministering relevance, and their control drive them to evolve into whatever of the children in the appropriate proportions. They will, for sure, have a devastating effect on the children. Indeed, the children may not turn out to be what the church expects as commanded by God. Each segment pulls and keeps pulling the child into its domain. Of these segments again, while some have some backing, so they are enforced subtly or aggressively, making them very intruding, particularly the school and to a large extent community. These ones that can be enforced cannot be downplayed regarding their influence and effect on the child, school, and community. Other segments in the quadruple are benign, to say the least. They can be ignored easily or applied with pretense to the effect that they may become second fiddle or actually be subsumed and made virtually of none effect. Here I see the home and the church. It is within this complex and dynamic context that we find the future of the ministry of the church to children. Our duty as a church in ministry then is to continue to intentionally engage the 3 other segments, home, school, community. First, to understand their nature, goals, modus operandi, what energizes and drives them. Second, the church's engagement of these other segments must lead to a grasp of their effect on the child, the parent, and the church. This endeavor is to help develop the appropriate curricula for the formation of those who minister to children, both agents and ministry leaders. To be able to step into the role of reorganizing and reorganizing the formation of children with the stressed aim of training the leaders and the agents in the way they must go, and also for the children, so that in the end the church will win. That is to say, when the children grow up, they will not depart from it, all the challenges notwithstanding. This then is a call to pursue fervent, lifelong biblical Christian spirituality that will translate into adults who manifest Christ-likeness in all spheres of life as the true face of Christianity. Now let me turn attention to the quadruples. What the community is becoming and its implication for the church's ministry to children. At the close of the last century, several nations and communities became thoroughly post-Christian. So much is this situation so that to some communities, Christian norms were not just considered to be out of vogue and so not desirable anymore, but rather inimical to what they perceive as life in its fullness. This is to the extent that some of these societies and communities are brazen in their boldness to actually fight against Christianity. The argument some raise includes the statement that Christianity has had its day and those days must be totally over. Others say that Christianity in its days was used to destroy and cause harm to humanity, and that must not be allowed to go on. This posture means that Christianity is opposed and in some contexts scoffed at. While one may say that this is happening in its depths somewhere else, one cannot be blind to the fact that it is these standards that are projected in the world all over to be what must be, and by that, nations and communities are being held to them. In our context, we see the effect of these positions via technology and social media, which has caused a blatant espousal of shamelessness to be immoral. And let me pause here to say this. The upsurge of daylight robbery and the so-called LGBTQAAA plus and co. has its foundation in this particular thing, shameless to sin. So people, the Lord himself gives us grace by rolling onto us again an awakening of conscience to cause us to have shame, so that we know what is shameful and walk away from it. This is not going to slow down. This is not going to slow down. Sorry. So in our context, we see the effect of these positions via technology and social media, which has caused a blatant espousal of shamelessness to be immoral, not to talk about the guilt that must follow. This has come to the extent that the one who commits what is wrong does not feel the shame of it. To be committed to making right the effects of that wrong as much as it is possible. And the upsurge of total breakdown of values. This, in some